Hello everybody, my name is Erik Teren Mullins, and today we're going to be checking out My Hero Academia's created by Takara Tomy and Bell Himiko Toga, who is scaled at 1:8. However, this is a gorgeous 1:8 figure. You can tell because of the size of her face, the body, the proportions, everything. It all seems a little bit smaller in comparison to this 1:7, which actually scales a lot better with her. And here she is standing next to an alter 1:7 figure, where I'd say all of this scales very nicely. I know art style is a thing, and it can really skew the proportions to a figure. Measuring her from her foot to her head, let's say a little bit of give and take, she is roughly 20.5 centimeters. Multiply that number by 8, that gives us 5.38, which is extremely close to her actual height. I can't believe this. I feel like this whole figure, just looking at her, really messes with your perception, not only due to the cell shading, but also in her sizing. Right on the mark. So I suppose she is a 1:8 figure. With everything she's got going on in her, Bellfine did an excellent job with her measurements. This figure has already been created several years back. However, this release is called a 2D version where we get her with some awesome cell shading. I have a full unboxing for this figure, and if you'd like to check it out along with a quick overview, be sure to check the link in my description down below. You'll see the horrors I had to go through in putting on all her gear. She pegs into this giant globule of blood over here, where then there's a little stand that comes up here to hold up her knee due to her very dynamic pose. And this stand piece really doesn't peg far into her leg, so you absolutely want to be using this literal transparent crutch to be able to hold her up, because otherwise she's definitely going to lean. When you shake her, you can see she moves a little bit. In the process of moving her, oh my gosh, I got that on camera. So she does actually come off pretty easily, and that's due to the fact that this is not a metallic peg that goes up into her leg. It's a tiny, cheap, hard plastic one. And you just saw me. I wasn't shaking her too hardcore, and she was slowly edging out of there. So if you have her on any kind of table or shelf with everyday going onings, you might want to rethink her placement within your home. The bottom of the base has all sorts of stuff going on here. Tons of pegs for all our cool design work up at the top. Front and center, we have the word shuck, because boy, oh boy, does she shuck blood out of people. I guess. That's definitely what they were going for. It's just, this is a more cute, family-friendly way of saying it, because when you look at a schoolgirl, especially one that has this kind of ahegao face on her, writing suck on the front could really come off as just... Not to mention, she's also got that Harley Quinn mad love obsession. Oh, this figure is such a borderline spicy character. All this to say that companies need to tread lightly if they want to sell this to specific younger audiences. As we spin around, we have some awesome blood effects, some really gorgeous 2D style cell shading on this, where it comes into the smoke that kind of looks like a croissant. The base itself has this nice print on it that really gives you this halftone pattern similar to a comic book in color. It looks awesome. I really love it. Going into her shoe, you can see that we get some beautiful lighter and darker browns, and done in a manner that makes them look kind of shiny, which is just fantastic. This figure doesn't have a lot in different types of textures, so you're not going to get glosses, semi-glosses, mixed with a bit of matte here and there to accentuate different parts of her body or clothing. The reason for this is that it can really destroy the illusion that this is a 2D illustration. As we get into these lovely green knee socks, the shading on this is a lot more pronounced and not as reflective, which is excellent for that kind of material. Get a little bit of black line art around the top where the skin ends up meeting up with them, and then the skin bevels outwards where everything here is nicely toned in its sculpt. We have our darker brown tones for the skin coming from underneath with the lighter ones on top, implying that the light source is going to be similar to this. It's fun to see a bit of line art and even shading for her thigh straps that also have some black outline around them to really make it seem like it's an illustration. Along the front, everything is nicely done in a darker tone, a bit of line work for the knees, as everything goes up under her skirt and into her underpants. They're completely done in a darker brown. Personally, I would have liked to see a bit of black shading going around here. We even have a bit of sculpt work with indented lines here and there. And this is one of the two parts on this figure that doesn't actually have any cell shading on them, and it's just a little bit disappointing. Though on the plus side, depending on where she's placed on your shelves, you're not really going to notice this. Her incredibly short skirt is amazing. I love the pleats that we have on here, and the fact that we get some lovely cell shading all around it to really accentuate them is just fantastic. Even the way everything kind of flows outwards to go with the rest of her dynamic pose is very well done. We get a lovely defining line around the top end where it connects into her sweater. And the sweater is pretty impressive. From the section off little squares we get down on the bottom, beautiful darker beige shading that we get around it to accentuate its beveling. Lovely little pockets. We have some nice buttons that go all the way up, and the line art that surrounds all of this just really does an excellent job at selling you on that 2D look. As we go into some more shading underneath her chest, and this just looks really good. That darker shading slowly fades away as we get behind her back, while still keeping it underneath her little sailor collar? Cape? I don't know what it's called. If you happen to know, please write so in the comment section down below. We get a bit of line work and edges here and there, where the folds in the sculpt work in tandem with the shading, and the darker beige does a great job at continuing off into her arms, where her left arm sculpt work isn't too overly detailed, seems somewhat puffy, but does look like an illustration. The way that the right one is all folded in, and we have the line art and then darker shading around it, is only okay. Personally, I wouldn't have made so much of the line art so strong everywhere here, and the darker section, I probably would have made it lighter and then slowly get more thicker chunks of darkness as we get along the inside of it facing towards her body. We get a little bit of that on the outside here, but oddly enough, her forearm has this lighter piece, which almost looks like a decal that was added after the fact, as opposed to not just painting a darker paint there. Up close, you can tell it's slightly off, but from a distance, it's not so bad. Her hands are okay. While I feel like the main hand part up to the knuckles is decent, the thumb looks kind of tiny, and the fingers kind of gives you this sausagey style look. Either the sculpt work here should have been a little sharper, or perhaps the darker skin tone we get for the 2D shading effect could have had sharper lines along certain corners of the finger. In comparison to a manga illustration, I would say that this isn't that good, but in comparison to an anime one, they don't always put in all the sharper details, especially when it comes to fingers, within a specific scene for an illustration. These figures ain't bad, they're just not amazing. While her left hand kind of gives us the similar effect, the way that the fingers are splayed out are pretty nice. Now that I'm getting a closer look at this hand, it almost gives off that sausaginess that you would get from putting too many thick layers of paint over something that might have otherwise had more detail to it. I love the line work that we get around the nails. I think it's really cool. The red scarf that she has on the front of her is beautiful. Lovely darker shading underneath. The line art that we get all around this thing looks good. As it goes into her little sailor collar thingamajig, and this is a problem. I'm not dunking on the sculpt work. I think it really looks good, and from a distance, you know, you're not going to notice things too much, especially with natural lighting creating sort of a shading effect on things in general. My problem with this is they completely forgot to do the cell shading on it. If the light is really coming from straight down, they could have added some darkness to reflect her overall large round head getting in the way of the lighting. They didn't do it. They didn't do any of it, not even around her folded arm here, where that could have at least been a bit darker. Especially when it's a similar blue to her skirt, they could have just used the darker blue in the pleats there to go over this thing. It's a little bit disappointing. But honestly, I would say a lot of you out there that are picking up this figure probably wouldn't even have noticed it if it weren't for me just pointing it out right now, because that's what I do here on this channel. I ruin things for people, but I also hype them up. It's a 50-50 bag. It's really tough being objective with something that I subjectively find incredible. Her neck color looks all right. The shading is decent, and the neck comes out really long. That's okay. The shading we get underneath her face is a lot, I would say, for her neck being as long as it is. Though in truth, not all of us are going to be posing her like this. I would say most people are going to be putting on all of her accessories. If you're going to be posing her just like this, please write so in the comment section down below and let me know your reasoning why. Is it because the rigging is freaking like 40 minutes to put on properly? Or do you just like the cute school aesthetic, holding the knife with the crazy face? Like, all of this is really fun in its simplicity and in telling a story. Whereas the second you put all the rigging on her, she clearly looks like she's a little more than just some crazy schoolgirl with a knife. And a big heart full of love. That sectioned off plastic line of where the head meets the neck is atrocious. It looks so bad. Oh my gosh. They could have put a black line somewhere around here to make it look like the illustration of a manga or something, to show the jawbone and everything, and it could have all connected there. That's a huge miss, and it's such an obvious one. Depending on what angles you have her on, this line is going to look really gross, and that's too bad. Her ears have different shading on each one. This is awesome. I'm pretty happy about that. They're not overly detailed, but they do represent the ears that you kind of see in My Hero Academia, so it's good. Her face is pretty epic. I would say that when you're really looking at her up close with a microscope and you're not paying close attention to the different types of shading you have to have that 2D effect, it looks kind of messy. Between all the dark lines, the blushing, and the darker paint job that we get to represent her hair shaded over her face, it's a little much. Even the mouth, how it's all black on the inside just to show the white teeth, everything just seems a little too separated. But the second you start to push her away just a little bit, it all starts to come together and really look wonderful. The fact that her entire mouth is all black on the inside with her white teeth that pop is awesome. It really makes it a focal point. The line art throughout her teeth going into her tongue is really good too. The darker shading that we get on her nose is just perfect with the line art for the point. The shading to give us that pointy chin is really fantastic. The blush is really good and represents anime so well. While the eye decals do an excellent job at pushing the 2D effect, the eyes and the way that they're done is excellent. Really gives you that ahegao face. Her hair is absolutely phenomenal, and it's rare that you'll see anime figures with hair this good, but the cell shading and the line art really helps hide all the plastics and the strands that are glued together. From the front, everything bounces out and just works so well with the movement of her pose. The strands that we have coming down from the top and flowing over her ears are just gorgeous. When you look up close, you can actually see a bunch of these strands and how they're glued in. However, due to the shading and the line art, it looks terrific. Going into the back of her hair, I love the level of detail we get for the shading and how we have a couple of highlights here and there as everything goes down into being darker. The buns look absolutely fantastic, and one thing I would say is that her giant strand of hair coming down the right side of her head definitely should have had some shading here too, especially closer to the hand. So just like this, you get quite a bit, and she is impressive. However, she comes with all this accessories. I know it doesn't look like much. It's roughly 20 minutes or more to put it all on, and if you want everything to go on properly and not have things keep falling off on you, it just takes so much longer than that. It is not easy, and it's because of this that I can see people not wanting to swap out her gear on a regular basis. If you like this video just a little bit, don't forget to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and why not the notification bell? This way you'll be notified of my future videos. First up is her extra hand that she comes with. It's an open hand, and this one looks pretty good in comparison to the other two, where I feel like they did a better job at sharpening up her joints on her fingers. My one issue is that this hand is a little bit bigger than the other two. Not by much, but just enough to somewhat be annoying when put side by side like this. The thing is once it's in there, it's far enough from the rest of her, it kind of works. She has this cute little cell-shaded knife. This thing is pretty awesome. It really looks like a switchblade despite her having these little places to put it in. The knife can slide into her top hand from the top or from the bottom, and I personally just like having it pointing downwards. It's fun that they give you that option. However, it does fall out of her hand pretty easily, so be mindful of that. The body part itself has a tiny little peg that goes into the hole on the other side, so you kind of strap this around her body. The plastic is fairly malleable, so don't be too afraid of getting it around there. Just be careful not to scratch the plastic. My issue is once you do get it around there, it's not the easiest thing to plug in. You can't get your finger under there to really push the peg in properly, and if you start pushing her backpack into the belt, I'm scared it's just going to scratch up the plastic, so you have to be very careful. And once you get it in there, it doesn't clip in, it just pushes in. So the slightest breeze or banging into this in any way is going to completely unclip it, which will unclip these little pieces on her neck warmer that plug into the back of these canisters. The whole experience is extremely frustrating because nothing clicks in very well. We have this little canister here with this plastic wire, and this just gets slid into her hand. The sliding here, it's really tight. Tight enough that I would say it could damage your paint. This whole wire isn't done with a metallic wire, it's actually plastic. So this could easily break or snap if you're not careful as well. Boy, oh boy, you sure have to be super careful with everything involving this figure the second we get into all of her little accessories. It's so stressful. When you remove her head to be able to put in her neck warmer, this weird headpiece here kind of freaks me out. I've never seen something like that before, and usually it's just like a square peg or something. I'd put the knife on first. Probably shouldn't be doing that. It's better to put the neck warmer on. It does slide in there. You just got to get it in slow and steady. As for plugging in these into the giant tubes in the back, I just ever so slightly push them in, because if you try to push them in all the way, it's going to disconnect the belt, and when the belt gets disconnected, then it's going to disconnect everything up here. It's a nightmare. And when you slowly put her head back in, you have to be careful, because if you put too much weight, you could break this tiny little crutch here. So you got to hold her nicely, put it in, take your time, because if you go too hard again, you might scratch something, damage, scuff up the paint. And also, it's going to move your entire neck warmer piece, which is going to disconnect the tubes from the back, which is going to unplug the belt, and then you got to do it all slowly all over again. And finally, we have these little tiny accessories with knives on them. In theory, this is super cool. In practice, you shouldn't have put these little pieces of green plastic that surround around her legs completely over the magnet unless you put a much stronger earth magnet in there. I like how they put in the left and right so we know which one goes where. Barely on there. And the second you start shaking this figure up just a little bit, they're gonna fall off. And then after they fall off, you're gonna have maybe the belt unbuckle. And then when the belt unbuckles, the wires back here are gonna come off. Then her knife is just gonna fall off. And once you put all your blood, sweat, and tears into building this character, really thematic for Toga. Almost as if Belfiend did it on purpose. The cell shading that we get on our knife holsters is really good, though I personally would have liked to see a darker and lighter gray on the blade handles, something similar to what we get on the tubes up at the top. These tubes have awesome cell shading on them that really does make it look shiny and metallic as it goes into the green, and then the wiring that we have coming down, which also has some shading on it, very nice. They connect into the giant green canisters on her back. Even on the bottom of these canisters, we get a darker green, nice black line work all around the edges. As we go around her belt, the line work and cell shading we get on these green box things are super cool. And despite it being a piece that you had to clip on her, it really does look like she's wearing it comfortably. Her beautiful teeth neck warmer thing is, oh my gosh. I freaking love it. It absolutely gives me Kantai collection vibes with the weird, crazy monster boat characters, and it's just cool. I like a lot about this character's design, and adding that really makes the character for me like it's freaking awesome. Oh, I'm so easy. I see big creepy teeth and Erik's just like, yeah, I need that in my life. This thing has shading on the teeth as well as darker cell shading around the stretches and folds of this material. Upon her release, she was going for 18,500 yen. That's quite the markup in comparison to her original figure that was 13,500. So you're basically spending 5,000 more yen in order to get this lovely paint job, and I think it's worth it. I love this concept, and I would like to see it in so many more figures. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I have a couple of Gunpla kits, and for the longest time, I wanted to paint them out to make them look like this myself, but with working so hard on my own comic manga Blithe, I just don't have the time. Also, I make these reviews, and that takes a lot of time as well. I think that this is a very impressive figure, and she'll look nice on anyone's shelf, especially considering from a distance the cell shading just looks better and better. I've shared a lot of different angles, pictures with you today, and you can see the level of hard work and quality that the painter put into this figure. Toga has always been a very Harley Quinn-esque style character. It makes sense. Harley's very popular and loved by so much of the fan base, and to have characters similar to her slowly branch out throughout all of the anime and manga and comic book community just makes sense. And you really get a great feel for her personality with the pose that she's taking here. It almost looks like she's skipping on her way to going to murder somebody, perhaps. Or maybe she's just gonna stop right before doing the deed and ask if you want to go on a ride on the merry-go-round with her. So romantic. She's really cute, and the paint job on her and sculpt work is pretty well done. But that doesn't mean she's gonna fit perfectly on everyone's shelves, so hopefully my review today helped you decide which side of the fence you're on in getting her or not. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Have you ever dated a person like Himiko? Are you in the market for dating that kind of crazy? For real? I feel like my whole life I've hooked... Wait a minute. My whole life, I always believed that having a strong balance and a little bit of everything is good, and sometimes that means being a little sweetie, and sometimes that means being a little crazy. It's fun to have a little bit of crazy, but you don't want too much crazy, and it's fun to be really sweet, but if it's too sweet, at one point it can kind of be a little bit dull. So when I ended up getting married with my wife, so when I first met my wife, she was definitely a little more on the, you know what? I'm not going to get myself in trouble. That's it. I'm out of here. I feel like just saying that I'm already in trouble. Oh my gosh. Maybe I shouldn't put this in the video.